Skirmish Season 14 is finally here. We're back in Sage, baby. Let's take a look at the results from week number 1. Yeah, I think she's going to go. I think Ira is officially going to see the bench. She's going to be hitting the bench for at least one season going forward after, at the very least, 1 week of results. Now, things could change. Maybe I'm being hyperbolic. I have been known to be hyperbolic in the past, but when you gobble up 25% of the meta and lap everybody in the field by more than double the amount of wins, you need to be talked about, and maybe you need to be stepped down a little bit. But here's the thing, like, how do you ban cards from this deck? How do you pull this deck down? Maybe you take away Upsticks and Run as sort of like a 2-card, like 5, 7, 2-card 7, maybe Upsticks and Run. That doesn't seem like the problem. Cut through a nice little 0 for 4 go again. I don't think that's like the answer. The issue is that Ira has just always been good. She's just so consistently exceptional in young hero formats. She was great in Blitz. She's fantastic in Commoner. And now here she is, very good yet again in another young hero format in Silver Age. And I'll tell you the truth, my vote will be cast very soon when voting occurs, and I will probably be voting for Ira. I thought it was going to be Briar for a long time there. I thought I'd even vote just from conscience standpoint to remove a Runeblade from the pool, essentially. But at this point, I don't think there's a lot of answers to be had with banning cards from Ira's deck. I just think she's that good. She needs to sit down. But alongside of her in the top 3, there's actually a tie. It is indeed Briar, one of those heroes that took many bans, as we've talked about before, and yet still continues to put up results. In this case, it's still the 0 for 4 aggro fest, this time supplemented with Sigil of Voltaris. Very, very powerful combo. And alongside of her is Icelander, another hero that has long been quite exceptional in the entirety of Flesh and Blood. Doesn't matter what format you're in, Icelander quite potent, and here she is making a surge in popularity after the Pro Tour performance that we saw on display from Damian Riggins, putting this hero back on the map and maybe giving us a possible answer to someone like a Briar, to a Fi, maybe even to an Ira, even though Ira has a lot of blues. Icelander perhaps gives you the counterplay necessary to play into these hair on fire aggro decks, and that honestly is a very promising sign, and one that I don't think people are going to be removing her because she serves that purpose. So if you're considering your voting options and you've participated in this Silver Age format thus far, I'm personally looking at Ira, I'm looking at Briar, and then the question marks come because everyone is sort of throwing out an interesting third name. Now remember, you only get one vote. You personally only get one vote, so when it comes down to voting for any specific hero, it very well could be that a lion's share of people vote for someone like Ira, and then the other 2 vote getters are kind of sparse in numbers, but because they were second and third place respectively, regardless of how many votes they got, they get the axe. So the real question will be, what are those third or second place vote getters going to be? Briar is so prevalent and has been this entire Silver Age sort of, I guess, from the official release of the format, I'll just put it that way, it makes sense. But at the same time, she's getting a new Silver Age pre-constructed deck. She's getting one of these in like a month and a couple of weeks. It's kind of crazy. So is she going to be sitting down? Is that even possible? They talked about how they want to have the ability to sell and like help LGSs move the product. So is that going to be a vote getter, or is she just going to require more bans? Or is it going to be the 4th place point getter, KO? That is a really interesting proposition because KO, as we know, was the hero that sat in Ira's spot just a month and maybe a little bit ago. So does KO now just take the spot as like the 3rd place vote getter? Is he number 3? And then who would be number 2? Is it Ira, KO, and what everyone's kind of talking about beforehand was Kano? Or does now Volda earn some of those, I guess, hate points is the best way to put it? Behind KO at number 5 is Oldhim, but I don't hear anyone speaking about Oldhim outside of the fact that people hate the 0 for 4 yellow block suite. Outside of that, which is Guardian generic, essentially, like it could be played by all Guardians. So really, it's less an Oldhim issue and more a Guardian kind of distaste in people's mouths. I don't necessarily think people are going to be voting heavily for Oldhim. If anything, maybe it's Volda, but I don't think that's going to garner enough, groundswell of support to vote her out. And Kano has long since been hated across all formats, maybe Wizards in general, but more so Kano. So the question becomes, Kano falling way down the totem pole. I mean, you look at it, Kano's in what, 7th place? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6? Yes, that's correct. 7th place, tied with Fi, tied with Volda, and also, interestingly enough, tied with Riptide. Riptide, by the way, we're going to talk about a little bit later because, I mean, it's this channel. I spoiled that hero. Of course I'm going to talk about Riptide as a potential answer to the meta that we find ourselves in for Skirmish Season 14. The rest of the field, a smattering of heroes like Bravo Flattering Showman. Somehow Dromai has continued to exist in the wings, if you will, not being hunted down by Ira, even though every time I play a Dromai game on Talishar, there's always an Ira on the other side. Dash, Dorinthia, Enigma, Florian. Probably one of the most annoying decks based on community sentiment, but at this point, how relevant is the vote going to be towards Florian with only 4 wins, like, across the world? That's kind of crazy when you think about it. Vincent, Arachne, and then a whole host of heroes that got 1 win apiece. And the question becomes, what are people going to do into this meta, and how do you combat the clear next number 1 deck? Because if it worked for KO, if people were able to take the puzzle that was KO as best deck and solve it by pushing him all the way down that list to like the 5th place spot, can it be done with Ira? And who would you use in that slot to counter Ira? Well, I know who I would pick, because if it were up to me and I were staring down a field full of Iras in my local meta, I'd be running Riptide. Now, congratulations out there to Arel Sonzomin. I don't know if I said that correctly, but if this indeed is true, this was the first place skirmish winning deck list there in Brazil, or at least it has the Brazilian flag. So shout out to Brazil. But this right here is a very popular, or has become, I should say, a very popular version of Riptide in this format. It is the big stompy Icelander version of Riptide, basically doing the Icelander game plan of playing really efficient big Bulllander style attacks, 3 for 7s, 2 for 6s, that could be 7. You've got all the memes where you can move your hands around, you've got Raging Onslaught, you can win with Pummel, you even have a singular cheeky Razor Reflex to play on the Talishar, not a bow, but Talishar, to win the game. And if you get them low enough, but you can't win with the Razor Reflex and stunt on them, you can at the very least win with trap damage. Because just like a wizard, there is a second axis to the game that Riptide plays, and this time it's true damage. And that true damage comes from playing traps. And so Riptide is essentially looking to target any hero that is going to go multiple chain links wide, that is going to play go again attacks, that is going to buff their attacks in any way, shape, or form, and that could play reactions. And wouldn't you know it, I just described Ira to a T. You can trigger this trap on Ira. You're always triggering this trap on Ira. You can trigger this trap on Ira. I mean, everything here. I mean, maybe you're not doing that one. But this one does trigger technically, but you're not tapping a target hero, or I guess you can tap the hero. But you essentially are feeling great into Ira. Now, I don't play this list personally. Like, I'll show you my own version of Riptide. I've been playing this since I made the video back like 6 months ago or whatever. This is an aggro version of Riptide that honestly I have not changed almost a single card for since Silver Age was called Project Blue. If you can think back that far. And this list also does quite nicely into Ira. And again, if you're looking to play something that is more aggressive, more, kind of like big numbers, this one can do some stuff. Okay, I played this at my local armory this past weekend, and I played against an Ira player. He played great, but unfortunately, this is just such a good matchup. Put a 5-card 20 on turn 1, thanks to a reload off of a trap on turn 0 into 5-card 20 damage, and then after that I followed it up with like 14 damage, and then I won with traps because we have all these traps in the sideboard. So in general, if you're looking to target specifically Ira or Ninja or even KO to some degree, this deck is fine against KO. These types of decks feel quite good right now. Riptide as a hero feeling quite good right now. Now, unfortunately, he's not good into other things, like, for example, Guardians. And if you are looking to play a Guardian, well, huge shout out to Double Duffer, this skirmish first place winning Oldhim deck list. That was a mouthful, but we got through it together. Oldhim's in a fantastic place right now. I think a little bit underrated. A lot of people are calling this Fatigue Slop, and I am joining in that name because it, of course, has the full suite of yellow block cards that everyone, including myself, kind of hate. But just like Kano provides a specific thing in this metagame, Oldhim does as well. He provides the ability to beat a hero like perhaps Ira, but also like Briar, because the 0-for-4 Hair on Fire style decks have trouble getting over the finish line, across the finish line, when you're basically loaded for bear on the defensive end. And a lot of these decks are kind of shifted one way or the other. Like this one has a lot of earth cards, a lot of generic block cards. Some lists are slanted more towards the ice react side of things that also does a number on specific heroes. So this is a deck that you could also look at that would be pretty solid into a very wide field. It's got all of these, very defensive pieces, including Staunch Response, including Turn Timber. You're even playing like Lay Low, but it also has answers to Wizard, which is normally a pretty terrible matchup in Steadfast and, of course, in Oasis. Now, this doesn't have Arcane Polarity, but it is providing more than enough in the side of Arcane Barrier, and it does play Sledge, so you could try to put them on a clock in that respect. Of course, there's always holes in every game plan, and you could win this matchup just fine if you're playing as Kano, but Oldhim quite nicely positioned as long as it doesn't see a board state hero. And this is where I'm going to come back to here and say, for all of those people that mentioned they want to see my Gravy Bones deck list and they want me to talk about Gravy Bones, I think he's a fantastic hero if Ira doesn't exist, and that's the specific thing. Now, of course, Briar is also a very tough matchup, a very bad matchup for someone like Gravy Bones, who's prides himself on building a board state that can't be popped with just like dragons. He's fantastic into most heroes, including the Fatigue Guardians, including just about everyone. In fact, let me just pull this up before I make the official video, which we will be making this week. I will teach you all that I've learned over the course of my, 2 months or something of playing nothing but Gravy Bones. Here's perhaps my most recent list, the list that I've been iterating on a lot. It has only 23 games on it so far. It has a fantastic win rate, but I want to show you the stark nature of how this hero plays in this format. It does not win against, aggro like this. It wins against everything else. We dropped a game against Lyeth, we dropped a game against Pleiades, and funnily enough, we dropped a game against that big stompy Riptide because I drew the deck backwards and played poorly. But at the same time, this deck is great against a lot of heroes. It's great against Brutes, it's great against Guardians, but man, it is unpleasant against some of these aggro decks. Nevertheless, I think if you're going into a meta with Guardians and with a smattering of other heroes and with just a little bit of Ira and just a little bit of Briar and not just loaded for bear against that, dude, Gravy Bones could be an answer as well. And so I will indeed share that with you as we go forward, because I want to provide you out there, all those people that asked, a video on how to play Gravy Bones in Sage. It's probably the most fun and rewarding deck that I've played in quite some time, maybe since Blaze back in Blitz. But I think it's a fun one. It's a tough one to take to an event, but If you want to see that video, make the number down here go to the other number and tell me how you feel about Sage and who you're voting for. You gotta share the word. Tell me who you're voting for. Who are you kicking out of this format so that we can all talk about it down in the comments below. If you enjoy this type of stuff, of course, again, make the number go to the other number. And as always, thanks for watching.